Hello, welcome to Hernia U. The topic we're going to cover today is the classification of ventral hernia. Those are my disclosure. So when we decide to perform a ventral hernia repair and we have our technique decided, we have to tailor our approach depending on the circumstance. It's not the same to have a patient in emergency setting than having an elective setting. Of course, we have to decide what technique we are going to use depending on the type of patient we are going to have. And one of the most important things in ventral hernia also is to tailor our decision based on the type of hernia we have in front of us. I think to tailor the decision based on the type of hernia, the first thing is that we should use the same type of calling the hernia or naming the hernia so we can compare the results with other groups and know exactly if we're doing the thing in the proper way or not. If we analyze what's been going on in the last year regarding classification of ventral hernia, we can go back to 2007, in which the president of the European Hernia Society, Andrew Kisner, in the inauguration speech of that Congress, say that the problem of ventral hernia repair is that we were comparing apple and orange, because people were using a different way of describing what way of the hernia they were repairing, and it was difficult to compare the result and to know exactly if we were having good results with one technique or not. Before 2009, most of the surgeons were using different classification, and if you go to the literature, you can find different classification. One published by Schumpelig, the other one published by Chevrel, another one published by Uli Dietz. So you can go and find so many classifications. So in 2009, in the journal Hernia, the European Hernia Society published a new classification, and the advice was, please surgeons use the same classification so we are talking the same language and we can compare our results. That group of surgeons who published that results, the first things they did is to make a table and to analyze the different parameters that the different classifications that were published were included. So based on these, there was an internal voting to decide which variables were the one that they should be used for a new classification. And they come up with a classification in which the first thing they did is to distinguish between primary hernia and incisional hernia. Regarding primary hernia, the variables that were decided to use were the location of the hernia and the size of the hernia. So in this table, you see the final classification that it was decided and it was published in that paper. Basically, we're going to have in the midline the epigastric or the umbilical hernia, and in the lateral we're going to have the lumbar hernia and the Spigelian hernia. Basically, these primary hernia were established based on the width of the hernia, and there was considered a small hernia those with width less than 2 centimeters, medium hernia with a width between 2 and 4 centimeters, and large hernia with a width larger than 4 centimeters. On the other hand, in that paper, regarding incisional hernia, the surgeons included in the group use also the location, the size, but they add another parameter, that is if the patient have gone through a previous repair. So at the end, regarding the location, there were 5 areas in the middle line, which the hernias in the middle line were called M. And in the middle line, there were 5 areas. One is 3 centimeters apart from the subxiphoid was the area M1. M2 was the epigastric area, starting 3 centimeters apart from the subxiphoid and 3 centimeters above the umbilical. M3, which was the umbilical hernia that included 3 centimeters above and below the umbilicus. The area of M4 was 3 centimeters below the umbilicus and 3 centimeters above the suprapubic area. And M5, the area of the last 3 centimeters above the the pubic area. In the lateral position, there was 4 territories, and it was called by it was named by L1, 2, 3, and 4. The L1 was the subcostal area. L2 was the flank area, which means 3 centimeters above and below the umbilical. That's the area that is included. L3 is the iliac area, and L4 was the through lateral lumbar area. Regarding the size, the most important parameter to be used was the width. But analyzing the width, one of the things that you should consider is that if you have an incisional hernia with just one sac, with just one defect, what you have to consider is the width of the defect. But if you have incisional hernia with different defect, what you have to measure is the total width of the area of the different defects that there are in the midline. You can see in the slides an incisional hernia with different defect, one towards the left of the patient, another one towards the right of the patient, but the width of this incisional hernia should be considered all the area of the width of the incisional hernia. So in this table, you can see how to classify an incisional hernia. Midline, M1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Lateral 1, L1, 2, 3, 4. You have to click if it's a recurrent incisional hernia. And regarding the width, they classify using a W. 1, which is a small hernia, is less than 4. 2, which is a middle-sized hernia from 4 to 10 centimeter, and large hernia are considered those with a width larger than 10 centimeter. So for example, if you have an M2W2, that means that you have an epigastric hernia that is like far 3 centimeters from the subxiphoid area and above the umbilicus. And BW2 means that is a middle-sized hernia with a width of 4 to 10 centimeters. So my advice and the advice of the European Hernia Society and most of the society, and also in the international guideline, what is being written is that all surgeons, if they want to publish the results and if they want to communicate the results in a congress, they should use the same classification so we can compare the same type of hernia and the result that we have. So the advice is to use the classification of the European Hernia Society. Thank you very much for attending this session.